Hey guys, Dan God of Thunder here, and I'm a total moron. So I did this whole patch notes video. I did the 7.9 bonus and this, and I forgot to talk about Loki at all. I said it in that video, like, I'll talk about it at the end, then I forgot about it at the end. New strategy, we're going to do the 7.9 bonus, then we're going to go straight to Loki and go down the list, because I'm an idiot. Here's the bonus update, stuff I don't care about. Amaterasu's getting two changes, minus 10 damage at every rank off of her dash. And she's going to get 5 less scaling off of each hit of her Dazzling Offensive. So this is going to go down, I want to say off the top of my head, I think it's like 20 plus 40%. I want to say this is going to be like a 70 or 80 damage nerf at level 20 compared to current. The thing is, Amaterasu doesn't really need this. I think this is going to hurt her jungle or her flex capability to jungle, which she didn't have much of to begin with. Where this is going, if they were to change the cooldowns, that would be a big deal. If they were to change the CC of the silence or the CC, especially of the slow and stun, those would be game breakers for Amaterasu. As it is, I don't think these are going to really matter. Chikulu is getting another nerf because apparently when they create something that's supposed to be so powerful that he can break all of your current gods, it turns out he does just that. He's beatable. You need dedicated counter strategies for him. And I think they want to put him in a spot where that's not necessary. So they're giving him 5 less damage per rank on his 1, along with 5% scaling. The scaling doesn't matter. He is going to be building mostly tank anyway. I don't think this is going to change too much. I think they feel like they're close on him. Whether they are or not, that's up for debate. Cupid is getting 15% less physical power per cast of his heal. That's really what that translates to if you pick up all 3 hearts. That doesn't really, I don't think that's going to matter too much. I think the reason that Cupid's back in the meta is because he can clear wave. He's always been a good 1v1 hunter v hunter boxer. And this healing of his is a nice bonus. It is a part of what he does. It's just not integral. The fact that he now has the ability to clear at a high level, which he didn't have before, I think is why he's back. Plus his team fight presence. This isn't a big deal. Speaking of things that aren't really big deals, Freya's Valkyrie's discretion. This is going to hurt her ability to get like chase down kills, but the biggest value out of her ultimate is she is out of combat. She can get her teammates to come near her, and she can put out some respectable damage. 10 less damage at each rank isn't going to be a huge deal, especially later on. Yes, I know it's 3 in the morning. Thank you, clock. Especially at the top end, you're not getting most of her damage in combat from the ult. That's the truth. Hoon bots, they went from 120 at all ranks to 110 to 90, and they realized, oh, we might have made an oopsie. Speaking of oopsies, I was out of town during the 7.9 patch. I laughed my ass off when I saw this. They're now going from 110 to 90, which is actually better than he used to be before he got nerfed into the ground on ult, to a more reasonable 120 to 100. So this puts him back so level 1, he's where he was 2 changes ago, because 1 change ago is this. 2 changes ago was 120 flat. And then 3 changes ago, it was 100 flat at all ranks. This is a pretty good middle ground, and I think you'll see Humbats in a healthy place. ROM, decrease the slow duration from 2 seconds to 1.5. You're going to see the calculator. No, it's not going to come up on that screen. It's going to come up on my other monitor. This is just a monitor capture that you're seeing on here, ladies and gents. Again, 0 effort production. Astral Strike losing half a second. Irrelevant. ROM does need some healing off the top end, but I don't think this is going to really change his status, in the meta. All right, Loki rework. He's getting 20% more damage on the first hit, so it looks like he's going to keep the chain. What is it? 80%, 50, 50, 100? I think that's what it is. Now it's going to be 100, 50, 50, 100 like it used to be. Behind you is now going to have Uh, Additional interactions with agonizing visions and flurry strike. Vanish, he's going to fade quickly. If he takes damage, he's now going to be revealed for a third of a second. This does, by the way, refresh if he gets hit by like a damage over time ability or like mystical mail. So he'll basically be permanently visible if you have mystical mail, which did get a price reduction. Decoy. Decoy was the worst offender of his kit, being replaced with agonizing visions. This is going to be a damage over time. The one thing that it doesn't really address is how many stacks this is going to provide. If I had to take a wild guess, this is gonna apply like 8 or 10 times. I have not seen the video. I was busy at the time. Sorry, I've got a day job that I do. I think this is fine as far as it's gonna give the blind effect. I don't know if that's actually gonna impair your vision, but it does allow Loki to benefit from additional damage with his autos for 3 seconds. And the damage dealt, I think this is a good number to start at, especially because they don't you don't want Loki to be oppressive, because oppressive Loki is still going to feel bad. I think this is a good idea to lower damage that enemies deal, gives him some utility. I think you could see this dial being adjusted, maybe like 5, 7.5, 10, 12.5, 15%. Maybe. Not saying it definitely will, but I think that's a good spot to have it right now, because if they've got to adjust that dial later on down the road, they could. Aim Strike is being replaced with Flurry Strikes. By the way, this does let you body block, but this does not, from my understanding, attract tower aggro, which was a big key to his kit. So he's essentially trading a complete inability to damage enemy gods with it, with his old ability, but he could split push and annoy minions to this is going to be useful in team fights, but you can't split push with it anymore. Which I really think is the key you need on Loki, where he just wasn't fun to play against or with, because he would always just be up doing his own shit. Aim Strike has been removed and replaced with Flurry Strikes. It's 4 hits, 5 hits plus a final heavy strike. So if I look at this, 5 times 6. Oh, great googly moogly. That is a lot of damage. That's 470 plus 150% scaling at rank 5. Um, that's actually quite a bit of damage for an assassin ability. So we'll see. I don't know. I think this might be a little bit overtuned. I think the flurries are going to have to be a little bit lower. I think this is kind of a boring ability. I get why they do it. Um, I just think this is kind of dull, especially for a god with so much creative history. There's a lot of things you can do with Loki. In mythology, he does have the ability to transform. You could even do something like with Erlang Shen and Sun Wukong have, because Loki has done that in his mythology. I think that would have been a much more interesting direction to take it, other than Flurry Strike. But I do understand where this is. The Vanish is meant to be his mobility tool, so giving him something that could double as a mobility tool, maybe not great, but there's still something I think with that transformational ability of Loki, where there's something to play with here. Assassinate does less damage on paper, but it's still 490 plus 125% scaling, but it's going to be teleport, cripple, and then with a little bit of time to react to it, a stun. We'll see how that works. I think that's a lot less oppressive. I wonder if maybe the cripple should be stronger to compensate, or maybe lower the cooldown on assassinate. I'm not sure. Um, the one thing I think they need to clarify on this is if he remains being able to get behind people immediately, because that was a big part of the old kit. Maybe they immediately become blinded, so it doesn't matter. That would be cool. I think if he when he assassinates, he triples and blinds, and then he stuns. So even if someone ages it out or they beat an Aegis, he still has a way to fight into them even if he's done that because he can get all of this damage off with Flurry Strike because he can use his basic combo and do damage with that. I think this is a cool way to take him to this character that's still this trickster that wants to be behind people, but now he really wants to be in that team fight. And it does seem here with this assassinate, he can actually hit multiple people with a stun. There is an AoE component to it. I think that's actually a good way to balance out the fact that it's no longer instant. Or purely instant, anyway. I think this is a much better direction to take it, especially getting rid of the fucking decoy. So we'll see. Let's see. Atalanta's bow. Atalanta's bow's the passive is decreasing the movement speed penalty, so you move like 70% rather than so you move at like I don't know what this means. This decreased movement speed penalty when attacking and strafing from 40% to 30%. Does this mean like you only move 30% as fast compared to when you used 40% or what? It's really very badly worded. It should be like here's the penalty from when you normally decide to attack and strafe. Let's just call it like 80%. The penalty is reduced from 80% to 60% penalty. Now it's going to be 70% movement speed nerf. That's how they should phrase that. I don't know what the actual numbers are. But Atalanta's bow with 20% pen, they're right. It's the premier item for hunters, and reducing the attack speed by 5% and reducing the passive, which it doesn't need to still be good. Atalanta's bow would still be bought almost as much if it didn't have passive because it's just so cost efficient and the 20% pen is so hard to come by on an item that also synergizes with hunter builds. This is almost a strictly superior version of Executioner now, and I can't imagine a case where you want Executioner and not Atalanta's. I really can't. Silver Branch Bow is getting a attack speed decrease from 35% to 30%. Along with this is going to mean that you're going to get like what 10 less power off of your builds with Silver Branch, which I think is fine. I especially they say that a new Hunter meta build revolves around it. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. The Silver Branch is pretty good now, especially on gods like Ram and Artemis, who can make use of a steroid to get a lot of attack speed. Gladiator Shield's friggin' stupid. They reduced the cost by 100 gold, and they have changed it so it's now going to be from 17 to 55 damage per level. To 15 plus 35% of your total protections from items and abilities. This is actually the and abilities is key. And they've increased the threshold from half to 60%. So what this means is now is that if you have over 115 protections, this is a buff. A little bit of testing, by the way, remember 115 protections will get you to the old level of 55 per hit. I was able to get to 651. Um, Achilles with a relatively conservative build, not like janky or gimmicky. I had a support Achilles with Glad Shield. This was 6 items, so no boots. Glad Shield, Thieves, Sov, Heart Ward, Spirit Robe, and Oni Hunter's Garb. So it's not like, oh, I'm just picking the best, highest numbers for protections. That's a real build. That's not like that's like a non-troll build. It's not the most creative. It's not necessarily what you'll always have, but it's a good example. Achilles with his passive, which is passive ability, gives him free prots. I think it's like 45 of each. And his 2 gives him percentage protections. So when you combine all of those, he was able to get like almost 400 of each prot, and it was like 651 from abilities and items. So you're doing like an extra 225 damage when you use the shield bash and a dash and his execute. The execute doesn't matter, but still, that's a lot of extra damage. Um, this number, 35% of your total prots, is way off the chain. It's not hard for a solo laner or even some junglers to get into the several hundreds of protections, depending on how you want to play it. This is insane. Um, I don't know if this is quite as broken as reworked Hakate at mid-season patch, but it's close. It's close. Remember also 40 of those 115 protections you need comes from Glad Shield itself, so you only need 75 from one other item, and then you're ahead. I could even see, in theory, some solo laners building Gauntlet of Thebes late game just to get the extra 120 protections. So, anyway, excuse me, Emperor's Armor. Emperor's Armor is actually a pretty good item. It's only 2,000 gold and gives you 250 health and 40 protections, but it feels bad because it's a team item and most teams are stupid. This is an item that's really good on sieges, but they have to make it so it stands well on its own. I think it does. At 250 for 2,000 gold, it doesn't even need to be used under towers or phoenixes to get a lot of value. Emperor's Armor is being slept on. Higher than Nemean Lion, I don't really have a take on it at the moment. Um, protection scaling a little too easily attainable. They think you get stacks too soon or too early. At 120, this is really meant going to be only for frontliners. But the problem is that frontliners don't necessarily want an item that's suboptimal but lets you block a couple of stacks, because really depending on who you fight, that's only going to buy like an extra half a second. I don't know why you get this over Spectral. Most games, unless they don't have a crit hunter. You know? I don't know if Nemean is worth it in non-crit situations either, with like Witchblade Midgardian. So, who knows? On her Apollo, they both have the same buff. Their movement speed comes out faster and is faster. That's really the change. I don't think this is really going to make or break them. They're still kind of fringy characters, but hopefully you'll see some more of them because they're both kind of fun. Ares now provides 10 to 30 HP 5 to himself and allies affected by the aura. The aura lasts for 8 seconds. Bolster defenses, meaning this is only going to give you like 16 to 48 HP 5 if you haven't already hit the hard cap on HP 5 and you're next to Ares for the full 8 seconds. 16 to 48 hit points, health on that ability doesn't mean anything. Like, that's not useful. If this is a permanent aura within 35 units, I think then, I'm down to clown with this, and this is a lot more interesting to play with. But just during the time the aura is active, not so much. Artio is getting 20 more healing off of Druid Stance 1. I think it also got a range buff for how far away allies have to be to get the energy surge heal. So I think this is actually in a pretty good spot. Who knows? You might start to see some Artio. I just feel like the solo lane right now is fairly pressure centric, and Artio struggles in that. If you can get out of that team fight, out of that like laning phase into team fighting, Artio is still quite good, but I don't think she really has much of a pressure game. Baron Samedi is going to do more damage based off of magical power scaling. The problem is he still dies. He's really not buying him. He's really not surviving through the ultimate in any meaningful way. Not when there's so many ways to cancel it out. He has literally no movement abilities. He has to hit the heal in order to get a speed boost. He's just too fragile. So anything that promotes him to being a pure mid laner and not a solo laner is really not going to work. They need to improve Baron's survivability, or his damage just has to get to such a ludicrous spot, like double the magical power on the ultimate. So I think it's like 3% right now to 6% per tick because it's so many ticks. They need to do that so that Baron can always get shitloads of value and then die. That's really what has to happen. One of the two. Fenrir, he is getting base damage off of the Unchained. Okay, I think maybe they should have given him some more scaling because they are worried about Fenrir support. I don't know, maybe an extra 10% on his scaling, which puts him more into the late game because Fenrir always has a strong early. And Ragnarok is getting a 25% movement speed buff because apparently there's diminishing returns. I didn't know this, did you? I don't think any of us knew that. Ragnarok is supposed to only be like 10% faster, but it helps him dive and run around more and get people and put him where he wants to and where they don't want to be. Okay, cool with that. That's fine. I don't think these are really going to bring Fenrir into the meta anytime soon. Could be wrong. We'll see. Hachiman. Hachiman's thing is that he's just kind of good at everything that you want out of a hunter, and he can do his job. There's just never a time where it's like, oh, we've got to have a Hachiman. Um, he's not the most survivable, but he's good. He's good in team fights, but he's not the premier team fight hunter. He has the ability to burn down towers and objectives, but he's not the best at it. So I don't really mind this. I don't think this matters. This is just a little bit of extra damage on all of his poke abilities. So it's 10 to scaling up to 30 off the Eagle Eye. Okay. Osiris Sickle Strike doesn't matter because he doesn't really build a lot of physical power. Um, really shouldn't. I really do like this change on Lord of the Afterlife. Gives him the ability to get in and out that better. He can use this to engage more easily. This will give him more options over walls, through around corners, things like that, so he can get away more easily where other people might not be able to chase him. But it doesn't increase his it doesn't increase his damage output or cooldown or anything like that. So I think this is a good change on the ult. I don't think the sickle strike matters. He's gonna get a lot of hits off, but where are you gonna play Osiris in the jungle? Really? No one does that. Like, sure, some SPL people do it for various reasons, but Osiris Jungle has always typically struggled. And even when he has been on the winning team, excuse me, I don't recall a time when Osiris has been the reason the team won that game. So, who knows? Sir Cat apparently don't want her in the jungle anymore. Sorry, they don't want her in support, but they want her in jungle. And I like this ambush change where it's a lot of extra damage, but it requires you to use it aggressively, which is cool. The Cobra's Kiss is getting a cooldown reduction. We'll see. I think she's kind of fringe viable right now. The problem, I think, was they need to give her more off of the ultimate. They really nerfed the hell out of that. I think it's to be where it used to be, you had to have like 400 power, something crazy. Um, so it was almost just like a universal nerf. And it absolutely killed her in support, which fine if you don't want her support, okay. But they needed to put that break even point with physical power at a lower point. So I think they need to give her ult a little more. And I think then she's back. We'll see. Vamana. By the way, Vamana's a character that really synergizes very well with Gladiator Shield because he's going to hit so many things. And now that you want a lot of protections on Glad Shield for Glad Shield, you want a lot of protections for Vamana too. He moves faster and he can stick to a little bit with Colossal Fury. Okay, I don't think that's a big deal either way. So we'll see. I think this is fine, but Vamana's I think one of the biggest winners in this patch because he really likes Gladiator Shield. King Arthur is going to be nuts. King Arthur, Soul Eater, Glad Shield, Reinforced Boots, Mantle of Discord, GG. And everything else on top of that, Void Shield is going to make him even dumber. Pestilence gives him 80 flat. It's like an extra 23.3 damage if I can do my math correctly. I don't think I can. Comment below. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. What items and gods do you think still need balancing? Either way, take care. Sorry I didn't put one up last time. You have a good night. I'll catch you all around.